Dr. Moody wrote 720 Snapshot after earning his doctorate degree in strategic leadership. In 720 Snapshot, he outlines the acronym SHOES to describe the aspects that make up a leader. SHOES stands for socioeconomic status, history, opportunities or obstacles, depending on how you view them, experiences, and spiritual influences. Today, we're going to be taking a walk in Dr. Moody's shoes.
I first saw Dr. Moody one evening when he walked into choir rehearsal. I was a part of this Black gospel choir on the University of Texas campus. It was called Visions of Blackness Gospel Choir. But he had the cutest dimples I had ever seen, and I remember turning to my girlfriend and saying, "Hey, he's cute, but he's way too young for me, so I would never be dating him."
At this time, many UT students were attending a new ministry in Austin named Praise Tabernacle, led by Pastor Dana Carson.
As far as I was concerned, I was really into the things of God. Dr. Moody, on the other hand, was toggling between the two, shall we say. He wasn't totally committed. He still had his other friends. He was still going to Soul Night on Thursdays, which was on campus. I never went to Soul Night, ever, maybe one. But he was still going to Soul Night, had the same old friends, but he was also kind of tipping over into inner visions, the things of God, but he was not by any means sold out at that particular time.
I met Dr. Moody at the old former Praise Tabernacle on North Lamar when he was a part of the Inner Vision Choir at the University of Texas. He's been a part of the Praise Tabernacle since then, before it became The Rock.
When Dr. Moody decided to dive fully into a spiritual journey, he was quickly launched into leadership as counselor, deacon, and eventually Elder Moody.
My first impression of Dr. Moody was, number one, he was younger at the time. You can tell he was eager and had a hunger and desire for the things of God. Came in very submissive to Dr. Carson, and so you can always see the leadership skills in him when I first met him. So I was very impressed with his love for God and his genuine for doing ministry.
I got to begin to get to know the young, Dr. Moody. He had a head of hair, beard and everything. Just mostly seeing him around, because I'm trying to feel my way around too.
And then Dr. Moody was serving as deacon. I became a deacon. Yeah, y'all didn't know that. I became a deaconess. I had to go through the classes. I passed my classes. And so I was consecrated as a deaconess, and Dr. Moody was consecrated as deacon. And we served in those roles for quite a while. I
got requested that I has to be a deacon, and guess who our deacon instructor is? It's Dr. Moody. Charles Moody is our instructor. He was so young and practical. So practical, not really holier than thou. I don't know if you've been around a bunch of church folk and it's always, "Yes, my dear brother," and "Bless the Lord," and all that. He wasn't nothing like that.
I first met Dr. Moody as far as he was Elder Moody at the time at The Rock, and he had a sense of humor. I remember back then, he first challenged me about my rhythm. He said, "For a black man, you ain't got no rhythm whatsoever." I thought that was funny. I said, this guy got jokes.
We just connected. He was very down to earth. He was very personable. He was very relatable. He put me at ease in being able to talk to him. Even though I had a relationship with Apostle, I was not able to get to him for counseling purposes. I only had to meet with Elder Moody. And so I set up a meeting with Elder Moody, and he began to counsel me. I I knew of him previously in the church, but we had no direct interaction. So my first real interaction with him was when he counseled me through my stage of depression after my divorce. And that's what initially began to kind of unite us together.
So from the time that I came into ministry, Dr. Carson has always gone back and earned various degrees. During that time, he had 3 ministers and elders preaching in his absence. Well, Dr. Moody was one of those preachers. And so we got to actually see the transition. We saw the impartation, we saw the transition in their ministries, and we saw how God just began to use them in powerful ways. So we figured that was going to be one of those 3. They didn't think that, but we figured, wow, these 3 could really, either one of these 3 could really lead the church. But few are called, but one was chosen.
For me to see him go through that process and not be impacted negatively by his peers, I was proud of him, but I thought he was very brave.
In 2003, God told Apostle Carson it was time to move to Houston, Texas.
Dr. Moody came home, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and he said, "Flea, I got something to tell you." I said, well, as long as you don't tell me we're moving to Houston, we A-okay.
I remember watching the U-Haul leave for them to go to Houston.
Dr. Moody had relocated with me to Alvin, Texas, on our way to Houston, Texas, but it was a process.
We moved into a rent house when we got there, and we were trying to do things the right way. So we paid rent up for 6 months. We took the money from the sale of our house. We said, listen, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna pay up our rent because we wanna make sure that we're wise stewards over what we have. So then the second week, literally in my prayer closet, and I'm praying. And then I hear God say, I'm getting ready to do some tremendous things with your husband. My husband comes home that evening and says, Felicia, we're moving back to Austin. I will be taking over the church as pastor.
And then getting a phone call 2 weeks later, hey, I'm coming back. And I was like, for what? Like, did you forget something? Like, what you coming back for? He was like, I'm gonna take over the church.
Moody was the only one that I felt like was capable of leading the church in my absence.
I wasn't surprised. I was even more proud.
When I was sending him back, it came on the heels of I had to get on him about something he didn't do, and he said, well, maybe I can't help. Maybe I can't do this. He said, maybe you need to get someone else. And I said, long as you live, don't you ever quit. You get fired. And the very next day, that night, the Lord spoke to me and said, send Moody to Austin.
I saw him struggle and defy the odds and didn't care what his peers thought of his walk with Christ. And so for me to watch him go through that was sort of was a natural evolution of his life. And so my wow moment came when he threw himself into the ministry. The moment that he decided to be a minister wasn't a wow moment for me. It was like, that's what I'm talking about, keep going.
So the day that he was sent back to the church was the same day that I ended up at the church for more like a refuge.
I really thought that we were living in a mansion.